GMAT instructor with the Princeton Review, and this is a video about the experimental questions on the GMAT. So as you may have heard, there are experimental questions on the quantitative and verbal sections of the GMAT. They're about a quarter of each of those sections. And these experimental questions are questions that aren't there for you. They have no impact on your score whatsoever. They are purely there for research purposes, for you to do questions that the test writers will use down the road as actual GMAT questions. Now, the tricky thing is that there's absolutely no way of identifying them. They're mixed in with everything else, and we have no idea which ones they are. So we have to treat every question on the GMAT like it counts, when in fact, for several of those questions, they will have no bearing on our score at all. Now, this ties in, of course, to the idea of adaptive test taking, and if you haven't already watched our video on how the computer adaptive test works, please do. But the experimental questions don't at all follow the difficulty level that you've worked up to. So what that means is, as you're taking the test, you might suddenly see one question that's much, much harder or much, much easier, and that doesn't mean that you should interpret anything about your own performance or your own score from it, because the experimental questions can really be any level of difficulty. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that every question that does count for you used to be experimental before. So before you even sit down and write it, the test writers can predict what percent of people will get it right, what percentage of people will get it wrong, what types of mistakes people tend to fall for and make on those questions. And they can use that to sort of predict our performance on the test as a result. So again, because we don't know which questions they are, we just have to do our best on everything. And you don't want to waste a lot of time trying to figure out which questions are the experimental ones, because there won't really be any sort of clear signs for that. So the downside to these experimental questions is that you're sitting there for a significant chunk of time doing work that benefits you not in the slightest, and is instead, research for GMAT. The slight upside is that if you did see a question that you really, really hated and really struggled with, you can say, okay, well, there's about a 1 in 4 chance that that question didn't have any bearing on my score anyway.